few days ago that we could see that Vladimir Putin reversals on the battlefield and in the international arena. Has he bitten off more than he could chew this time?
Exactly. I think that he made two mistakes. One of them was overestimating his own power, the power of his army, but much more serious mistake was to underestimating the power of Ukrainian society. His plan was to topple Zelensky personally or to make him flee, and actually part of the plan worked because the Western countries actually did offer to Zelensky to be brought from Ukraine outside. However, he stayed, and that was part of the new circumstances that Putin probably couldn't foresee or didn't want to foresee. And the other side of the story is, of course, the fierce fighting of Ukrainian army, but which is more important of the whole Ukrainian society. What is going there is just impressive. People by thousands are coming from abroad. Ukrainians that were living abroad or studying abroad, coming to be volunteers. A soccer star from my childhood, who is now 64, is a volunteer, and he's taking his arms and going to the front. This is something that unites this country, which was usually divided with fierce political fighting between the former President Poroshenko and the current President Zelensky. Now they are united, the whole society. I think that Putin didn't want to predict that. And sitting in some kind of bunker, whether on the Ural Mountains or in other places in Russia, he actually thought that that will be an easy endeavor, that after the Russian soldiers will cross the border, the Ukrainians will just put their arms and surrender. This didn't happen, and that was the point that turned everything, because it compelled the Western countries to think that whether their former approach to stay outside of the conflict, outside of the war, whether it is wrong. Because to my mind, this kind of approach that President Biden, President Macron, and the German Chancellor Scholz showed us when they told to the whole world, we know that the invasion is coming, but we just want our citizens out of Ukraine, and that's it. Maybe after that we will put some sanctions, some pressure, but we cannot stop the aggression. The Ukrainians showed that they could stop the aggression.
Right, and to be fair to Putin, I think all of us underestimated President Zelensky, the former comedian turned really man of the hour. And speaking of the Ukrainians, you actually had a briefing with a few other journalists today, Owen, from the Ukrainian ambassador. What did you hear from him?
Yeah, first of all, Calev, an important update, unfortunate update. The Israeli Foreign Ministry is now officially confirming that an Israeli has been killed in Ukraine. We'd heard reports about this over the last few hours. The Foreign Ministry now confirming he was killed as part of a convoy that was trying to get to the border with Moldova, leaving Kyiv. Has a wife who lives in Ukraine, has children who live there as well. They have been notified. His parents live in Israel. They have been notified as well. Obviously, watch this space for what this may mean for Israel's policy toward Ukraine. I personally don't think, I don't know what others think, that it will necessarily change it in its big picture terms, but it may have an impact on the nuances.
We'll talk about that a little more in the next segment. And
Absolutely.
from the ambassador.
In terms of the ambassador, yeah, we were at a briefing with only a few other reporters earlier today. The ambassador said a number of interesting things, but in big picture, Calev, my main takeaway was this. On the one hand, the Ukrainians are still, in a sense, this is my word, not the ambassador's, disappointed and I think feel betrayed, also my word, in terms of the lack of full-throated support from Israel. They still want more support, and they're still coming out and saying it. On the other hand, the Ukrainians were actually thrilled, happy with Prime Minister Bennett's call with President Putin yesterday. Why were they happy that the Israeli Prime Minister is having a call with the president of a country that is invading them and promising to wipe out their sovereignty? Well, because Bennett put forward the idea of Israel being a mediator, which is something the Ukrainians have wanted. Vladimir Putin still for the time being saying no, but the ambassador holding out hope that at one point he'll say yes. So Ukrainians on one hand wanting Israel to come out and support Ukraine, and on the other hand wanting Israel to go out there and be a mediator. And Calev, the question is, can they have both? And does it make sense to be asking for both? How on the one hand can you ask for Israel to come and be on your side, and on the other hand ask for Israel to be some kind of a neutral party? There are maybe a few ways of squaring that circle, but I do think at its heart it's a kind of contradiction. Maybe they think that Israel can give them certain kinds of aid that won't disqualify them. Maybe they see the mediating position as a kind of plan B since they understand Israel and give them the support. Maybe it's just tough to set foreign policy when you're facing a war and the existence of your country.